Bruchim Habayim, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to the Siyum of Sefer Kedusha. On the screen beside me, we see how the Rebbe kocht in there being a Siyum Rambam, not only of the entire Sefer Hayad, of the entire 14 Svarim, but also on each and every one of the Svarim individually. The Rebbe writes, "Kan hamakim to their mannen wegen absurda teva was man hat bakumen as biyamim habayim ve'on farkumen as siyum if ein sefer in Rambam." It is now the time to recognize that a besura teva came, a good besura came, that a siyum, a completion of one sefer of Rambam will take place. There's a group of Yungelites, of fellow Chassidim that have gathered together over the last months to be able to encourage us by creating beautiful resources to be able to help us with our learning of Rambam, whether it is the daily shiurim or the podcast on the Rebbe's Torah connected to that day's Rambam, the Shir Liyuna, the in-depth shir. As we go along in the program, in the chat section on the Zoom, you can sign up to the mailing list, to the WhatsApp list, so that you receive all the resources that come out on a daily basis that have the ability to strengthen our Limud HaRambam on a day-to-day basis. Thank you for joining us. We're going to begin now by having a discussion with Rabbi Yossi Lipsker. Rabbi Yossi Lipsker puts together a daily podcast on the Rebbe's Biurim connected to that day's Rambam, something that as Chassidim gives us a geschmack, an appreciation for the amount of Torah that we have from our Rebbe on every day's Rambam. It is well done. It is thorough. It gives us an opportunity to really be able to appreciate the Rebbe's Torah on that day's Rambam. Rabbi Lipsker is now going to join us. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation to understand about this podcast, what goes into it, its purpose, and so on and so forth. Rabbi Lipsker, please join me.
Here I am. Thank you, Rabbi Levi.
Okay. Rabbi Lipsker, Shalom Aleichem. So first of all, you put out a daily podcast, which takes a lot of work, I can imagine. But what got you into this?
So I've always been like a very big learner of the Rebbe's Torah. I love to discover the amount of Torah that the Rebbe covers, Pashut, on every single part. Nigla, Chassidus, Primius Torah, and Kamuvan Rambam, as the Rebbe was masakin the Takana of Rambam. So the amount that the Rebbe would be koching sich in Rambam would be amazing to anybody who would discover it. But what I found more and more is that people don't actually realize the extent of it. Since the Rebbe's Biurim and Rambam were stuck in during Farbrengens or on Shabbosim, and sometimes when you read the Sichos, it looks like it's just a little vertel and you don't chap the Eimek. So it's very easy to not realize how much the Rebbe covers. And the truth is that pretty much from Achron Shel Pesach Memdal, when the Rebbe introduced the Takana, till for sure at the end of Memches, there wasn't a time that the Rebbe spoke publicly that he didn't mention the daily Rambam. Afterwards, it was a little bit different, but for 4.5 years straight, there was Pashut a Ribui Chaymer from the Rebbe coming out on Rambam. And so right before this Machzor started, a couple of people were talking, a couple of shluchim, and we were saying how there's not really a proper index of the entire Rebbe's Torah on Rambam. Certain Sfarim have put out different parts, Yen Malchus, all the Sichos after Mem Daled, Rabbi Zelig's Mafteach covers some of the central biurim, most of the major ones, but all the small ha'aris on the Kutta Sichos and the short times within a sentence that the Rebbe mentioned the Rambam instead of small beer during the Farbrengen, those wouldn't make it into the Maftechas. And so it was time for someone to really bring together everything.
Okay, so on a regular day, how much time goes into your preparation for this podcast? I mean, I get the final product. Sometimes it's 4 minutes, 25 minutes, but how much time are you putting in?
Yeah, on a daily basis, I would say it's about 2 to 4 hours. On the biggest days, like Hilchos Tshuva, Hilchos Lulav, when there's mamash a ribui nifla from the Rebbe, so I remember putting in sometimes 6 to 8 hours, but it's fair to say 2 to 4.
All right, so 2 to 4 and 6 on a 6 to 8. So I definitely appreciate it, and I think I speak on behalf of many of us. We appreciate that work. Now, what are you using as tools in terms of your research? You mentioned Rabbi Zelikson's Mafteach. You mentioned Yein Malchus, but besides that, what do you start with?
So I use those. Yeah, it's definitely true. The Chazak Rambam that was mitzayin to many of the Rebbe's Biurim and Rambam is definitely an incredible resource. And there's a Mafteach on the Kutas Sichos, the first 29 krachim, that also is extremely detailed. But the truth is that each one of these doesn't do a malacha shleima for whatever reason. Maybe it's the klalim of their Mafteach that they chose. So everyone gets a little bit of a part of it. And I've discovered throughout the time in this machzor that there are some things that weren't covered by anybody. Certain pieces in the Rebbe's Haggadah, and Chos Chametz Umatzah, and Seder Tfilas Kol Hashana, there's ha'aras and Lakutas Sichos that weren't brought up. In Hilchos Tshuva, even Hilchos Tshuva, which is such a central, and there was this whole sefer put out on it, they missed some things. So I also rely on some of my prior knowledge for that.
Okay. So you're putting together from many different places to come together for the Pundak Echad, everything under one roof. Being that you went through all of the Rebbe's Biurim in Sefer Kedusha, is there something specific, a particular novel beer, something short and sweet, but something which you learned either for the first time or you discovered it in the context of Rambam that really stuck?
Something short and sweet. To me, the parts that I love, especially when it comes to the Rebbe's Biurim and Rambam, is the Siyum. Like the Siyum on Machalas Asuris, the Siyum on Hilchos Shchita in today's podcast. Just how the Rebbe sees extreme diuk in what people would literally throw away in a second as melitza. The Rebbe shows how that dafka, the end of those halachas, are bringing out the whole teichen of the halachas, especially in today's podcast. You can listen to how in the end of Sefer Kedusha, the Rebbe brings out a point how the entire inyan of what we would think is just precious from Varim Asurim and things that are staying away from Shlila are actually called Sefer Kedusha, bringing out how they have to be elevated to the level of Tachlis HaKedusha Be'etzem. And what a person would think is the Chura on a lower level is actually connected to the deepest level in mitzvahs, to the point of where Atzmus Muhus Alein is Malubash in every single one of those things. So those the Siyumim are fascinating.
So this idea of the Siyumim, how sometimes when you look at the end of the Siyumim, it seems like the Rambam is bringing Psukim or whatever it is, or just Divrei Musar, and to see how the Rebbe really finds the detail there, even al pi halacha, is something which really touches you. So do you know by any chance how many people are receiving your biurim on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, right now we have over 500 people that are getting it through WhatsApp. Some important personalities, and Rabbi Wolberg that gives the Perek Echad Shir, uses the resources as he goes along, or the Jacobson who gives the Perek Echad Shir has been getting resources from me. Different Rosh Yeshiva, along with many Chashuv Shluchim and Anash that are as well giving shir into their kehillah. So the far-reaching impact of it is yet to be determined, but I think it's definitely could get even more. Could be Michael El Choyel. The more signups, the more people that will get it. You said before you could sign up on Rambam.today. You could also send a WhatsApp directly to the chat over here and let us know your number. We can give it straight to you. And like you said before, there's aside for the podcast, there's many other resources as well. Sometimes there's 3 Prakim Shurim from Rabbi Yuzevich in Crown Heights. Rabbi Resnick is going to talk about soon. And if I could just take a moment to mention something that
right now it was just posted in the chat box to sign up to receive the daily Rambam resources via WhatsApp. You could send in a message and you could share that with your Chaverim. Rabbi Lipsker, thank you for all that you invest into developing these resources. And the VAD has asked that you should make the Siyum on Sefer Kedusha with a hadron from the Rebbe on the end of Sefer Kedusha. So please share with us the Siyum of Sefer Kedusha.
In the Siyum of Sefer Kedusha, the Rambam talks about the dinim of Kisei Adam. And he ends off with the halacha that you're not supposed to cover the blood with your feet. Because what happens then is that you end up with minag bizoyin, v'yiyu mitzvahs b'zuyas alav, which will bring to mitzvahs being embarrassed and degraded by you. And the reason that that's important is because she'ein hakavid la mitzvahs atzman. The Rambam talks about the kavod not being for the mitzvahs themselves. The kavod is to the Eibishter who gave us these mitzvahs, and through the mitzvahs, the Rambam uses three expressions. He saved us from tapping or groping in the dark. And he set them up as a candle to straighten out all crooked things. And a light to show us the paths that are already straight. And that ever brings out how basically there's three levels in mitzvahs. There's precious and masurim, being saved from the chayshach, the helim, and then you have ner liyasher ha'ma'akashim, things that are crooked but could be straightened out when we use them properly through Torah. And then you have nesivas hayesher, things that are straight on their own already, they're kaddish already, and the Torah gives an added light to them. As the pasuk says, ner l'ragli dvarecha ve'er l'nesivasi, that the Torah, your words, are a candle even to my feet, even to the things that are lowly, as the Rebbe explains, and even l'nesivasi, which is a shvil katan, a small path, the Torah lights that up as well. I don't think we have time to get into a full hadron, but one vart that really touched me was that in Tafshin Mem Vav, the Rebbe explained why is the pasuk written b'lashon yachid, and it's also written in the first person. It's my nesiv, and the Rebbe basically explained that every pula of a yid becomes his. Means that mitzvahs that you do are completely attributed to you, and you have the full kayach to be peil adira b'tachtenim through that. And that's why it's Lashon Yachid. Torah was given to the whole Klal Yisrael. But there's also an element where it's Va'alav Bifrat, like the Rebbe says in Tanya, that the Eibishter is focused specifically on every single individual yid for the things that only he could contribute. Hadron Allah, Sefer Kedusha.
Yashakayach Rabbi Lipsker, Maskifin Siyum Lahaskala. We're going to go straight away to the opening of Sefer Haflah. We're going to ask Rabbi Yisrael Resnick, which gives a daily shir in Rambam, a shliach of the Rebbe in California, gives a daily shir in Rambam. And following the haskala of Sefer Haflah, we're going to have a discussion about the shir which he delivers on a daily basis. Rabbi Resnick, please begin Sefer Haflah.
Thank you, Rabbi Volvosky. Mazel tov, mazel tov. Tonight, or if it's already evening where you are, we begin Sefer Haflah, the sixth book. We're five down. 9 to go, sorry. Hashem, please accept favorably all that issues forth and that comes forth from my mouth. And all your laws, God. Lamdeini, please teach us. Indeed, this is called Sefer Haflah. We're going to begin the book that describes that which issues forth and it comes forth from our mouth, which of course is very important. We just learned about what goes into our mouth in the last book. Now we're going to learn about what comes out of our mouth in this book. This is the sixth book. The Rambam will divide this book into four categories: the laws of Shavuos, Nadarim, Nazirus, and Erchen and Charamen. And we're going to begin today the laws of Shavuos, of taking a vow, taking an oath. The Rambam's going to cover 5 of the 613 mitzvahs here. Number 1, don't swear in God's name falsely. Number 2, don't swear in God's name in vain. Don't deny that you owe money. Don't swear falsely that you owe money. And swear in God's name truthfully. Here we go. Perek Rishon, the very first chapter. Arba Minei Shvuyos Hen. The Rambam, as he does beautifully, and those of us who enjoy the Rambam really enjoy the organization that the Rambam has given us. He starts out, and this is actually a book which really sets the tone. This chapter, if you haven't gone, if you're just joining the Machzor, it's a great time to start. We're actually starting with a new chapter, a new book. 4 types of Shavuos. They're called Shavuos Bitui, Shavuos Shav, Shavuos Hapikad, and Shavuos Ha'edus. And in the first halacha, the Rambam tells us what Shavuos Bitui means. Here goes. Shavuos Bitui means I expressed something. I can express it in 4 ways. I can either say, I will do something, I won't do something, I did something, or I did not do something. And this is the first halacha of Perek Rishon. Thank you very much. Mazel tov, mazel tov.
Rabbi Resnick, thank you. Mazel tov for the haskala and for the siyum. So you began giving a daily Rambam shir, which is broadcast on Chabad.org on a daily basis. And my question to you is, what got into you to start doing a daily Rambam shir? I mean, it could be that you had a lot of time, but what was it that you decided that I just want to go ahead and do a daily Rambam shir, not only for your community, but for the world?
Very, very, very simple. There's some great askanim and some great shluchim Some of them are on today, whether it's Rabbi Cantor from Switzerland, Rabbi Zakos from California, Rabbi Darren from South Africa, Rabbi Lane from Wisconsin, and they called me and they convinced me, and that's how it happened. And I want to thank them publicly for getting me into this. And it was originally going to start with one book, and now, thank God, I can say personally that I've learned Rambam this year better than any other year. So I want to thank them publicly for getting me into this mess, and everybody else who's here, thank God.
So my question to you is, when they reached out to you, when the Vaad of Shluchim reached out to you to start giving this year, what was missing in the previous year that existed that you looked to? Which lane are you looking to drive in with your share on a daily basis? What's unique about Rabbi Reznik's share?
I'll tell you, Levi, I'm sure many of us are in the same boat. We started learning Rambam when we were young in Mesivta, and then we started, and finally we made it up to 3 prakim a day. And what motivated, I think, myself and most of us was our Kabbalah Zal. We were dedicated. The Rebbe told us to do this. We did it. And I can only talk for myself, but there are many parts of Rambam that for many years were part of Tehillim. And I don't want to publicly, you're not supposed to publicly confess all one's sins. That's true. But the truth is that we're not talking about great deep ideas, understanding the Lashon of the Rambam. There are many parts of the Rambam that I simply never actually studied. And I'll just read for you a quote from a Sikha in Tafshim Memhei. L'chal Reish, first and foremost, Sarach Lies, Limud Gimel Prakim, Ba'ofen de L'katan L'gadol. First and foremost, you just got to understand what you're saying. Limud v'yediyas pshutan shalalachas. So just simply understand Ba'ofen de Yada My Kamer. To know what we're saying. Of course, we're doing the Rambam because we want to be connected to our Rebbe. That's true. But the Rebbe wants us also to not just do it for him. He wants us to do it, as he says in the Sirah we don't fulfill our obligation of learning Torah if we don't know what we're saying. So the purpose of this year was simply to be able to understand the Rambam in a succinct manner. If you look at some of the shiurim online, they're beautiful shiurim. They take about half an hour a chapter. So going through 3 chapters is an hour and a half of time. That's a very, very long time. So is there a way to be able to really create the shiur where within half an hour, 25 minutes, on longer days, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, on the longest days, you can really cover and understand every halacha of all 3 chapters? Is that possible to do? So we'll see. And the feedback has been incredible. And again, thank you to all those who pushed me to do it.
So one of the things, so I hear what you're saying, that the shiurim were simply, for many people, they're just too long. And in order that there should be able to be a simple understanding of what the halach is. But I noticed in listening to some of your shiurim that not necessarily will you say every word inside. In other words, you're giving over the ideas or in detail, but you're not, so to speak, stuck to the text in every word. My question is, was that an idea that you came up with, or did you, because the first time that I've seen a Rambam share delivered in such a way, and really that is the only way to get around the 45-minute a share, the 45-minute a share issue in the Hilchos Shabbos, so I'm wondering the thought process there.
So actually, just in terms of the number of words, an average chapter of Rambam has about the average number of words on a daf of Gemara. So learning 3 chapters, just literally reading the words of 3 chapters of Rambam is the equivalent to reading 3 blot Gemara a day. It's just a tremendous amount of words. So I am not here to say, and everybody should please consult their local, their own Rav and their personal mashpia, if this is the only way they should be studying Rambam. But after consulting people of great stature, it was decided that this indeed can be an avenue by which someone can learn Rambam. I know many people have told me that they listen to it either as a review or as a preparation, and then when they're saying it, then they can just rattle it off, and it can take more like 10 minutes to just literally read through the words because they understand it. So I try, hopefully successfully so, to go through every single detail of every single law of every single chapter. You're right, to be actually to say it is just literally reading a lot of the words. Speed reading was something I was working on as well.
So being that your shiur is broadcast daily on Chabad.org, would you be able to share with us one piece of interesting feedback of someone who you didn't really expect to be learning Rambam together with you, and being that you have a broad platform, you find out that, I don't know, you tell me, something interesting.
Okay, I'll tell you something interesting. So first of all, as you know, Chabad.org has a extremely broad appeal. across. And there's a halacha in Rambam, those of us who might remember that there's a law, that there's a blessing you say when you see someone who has black color skin. Now, I wasn't as sensitive when I first started to know that I'd be speaking to an audience to which it's obviously a sensitive halacha. And it can be said in a delicate manner, and it certainly should be said that way when one is teaching a broader audience. But not being as sensitive to that, I got feedback from someone saying that this is inappropriate. I didn't actually express the halacha in a way that I would be talking if I'd be talking to a foreign audience as opposed to talking to, as we call, unzere. So seeing someone who would have an objection to that, and it was beautiful, and we had a conversation, everything, God willing. Thank God he understood everything. But having that type of individual watching a shir on 3 prakim Rambam a day, someone who's going to point out that they feel that making a blessing when you see someone with black colored skin is somewhat sensitive, I thought that was pretty impressive. So that's one of many.
Very nice. So the shir.
I do want to publicly just thank all those who give me the feedback. When you speak to a microphone and when you speak to a screen, you don't always know who's listening. So all those balabatim, chaverim, shluchim from around the world who can give me feedback. And when I didn't do some of the shir over Tishrei, the feedback you got, when is the shir starting? That in and of itself gives you the strength to go through those long chapters and laws of Shabbos, or coming up to Zroim when we're going to have all those different types of plants and vegetables, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, would you say that the shir as you give it today is something that a shliach should feel comfortable to invite a Jew which does not have a background in the study of Torah to feel comfortable to invite them on, and they'll be able to go along with the flow?
I think they would have to have some background. I think that someone who could pick up an art scroll Gemara and study it probably could be able to do this. But they would have to be able to have, coming from nowhere, if they really don't have a background at all, it would certainly be, I don't know that that's what the shir is for. I would say it's definitely intermediate. A bacher and Masifta could understand it, even an 8th grader, a 7th grader could understand it. I have children who've been watching it. So if you have a background in Yiddishkeit.
And you won't go in to explain even the most basic of details due to the lack of time. So in other words, if you're looking, so I got that.
And also it's a compound thing. I found, just like Rashi did, once you've explained it one place, go back and listen to where we talked about it last time. So we're not going to translate Malkus and Achatas and Skila and Hereg each time to explain what each one entails. So look,
you didn't explain Ein Isser Halal Isser 10 times in Sefer Kedusha.
Right, but as we're about to venture forth into the laws of Shavuos, we're going to we revisit that rule, and so I did explain it again momentarily when we revisit it in the next book. Okay,
so thank you very much, Rabbi Resnick. So your shir is published daily on Chabad.org. At what time is it available?
At what time it's available? Now you're getting sensitive, lady. That's a sensitive topic. It depends whether it's 2 a.m, depending on when I finish recording it. The staff there has been incredible at Chabad.org. They get it at all times, and they try their best to upload it. Being in California, being in one of the final time zones on this planet actually works against me. If I'd be in Sydney, it'd be easier. I'd be ahead of everybody. But being behind everybody certainly has its negative. So I have to be a day or two ahead of everybody. So I just sent tomorrow's Rambam to the staff at Chabad.org right before today's program, and hopefully it'll be up later today.
Okay, so those shiurim are available on Chabad.org. They also go out as well on the daily WhatsApp and the resource on Rambam.today. Rabbi Resnick, Yasher Koyach, thank you for allowing so many more Yidden and Chassidim to be able to study the Rebbe's Takana of Shleisha Prakim Rambam on a daily basis. Chazak v'nis chazek. Keep on going.
Thank you, Rabbi Lvovsky. Thank you, and may all the blessings that Rebbe told people, if they want to get out of debt, get out of the debt of Rambam, pay up all the previous chapters we owe. It's also a blessing for health, and for the world needs much of it today. So may all our learning bring us blessings. Thank you very, very much, everyone.
Yasher Koyach, Rabbi Resnick. As we are now we finish now Sefer Kedusha, going into Sefer Haflah. We know that the Rebbe encouraged that in addition to the limud in general, also to have at least one halacha a day to be done bi'iyun. In order to allow us to do so, the Vad of Shluchim have put together a lineup of daily iyun shiurim. You can find them at Rambam.today, and you can sign up via the chat. And that happens daily as well, to be able to study one halacha bi'iyun. And today, in order to refresh the memory of those who learned, there will actually be a trivia game for all those who would like to test their knowledge to see how things have been going in their Limud HaRambam in the last few months. Now, anyone who joins in the trivia game will enter into a raffle to receive an entire set of Rambam of your choice. The winner of the Rambam will be publicized in tomorrow's resources. Please look at your screens. The trivia game will now begin. The questions will be posted. After the questions are posted, there are 4 minutes to respond to the questions. Whoever enters into the game will go into the Hagrala, into the raffle for the set of Rambam. So the trivia game